Hello, my name is Kathryn Rodebaugh, and I am a senior kinesiology student at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Today I'm presenting my research on sport performance measures in youth wheelchair basketball athletes. My advisor is Dr. Ryan Connors. Wheelchair basketball is an adapted sport that accommodates varying levels of ability and continues to grow in global popularity. More teams are being established at all levels of competition, ranging from youth players to Paralympic athletes. Individuals with limited mobility are at a higher risk for health problems associated with a sedentary lifestyle. Participation in wheelchair-based sport decreases a player's risk of chronic diseases and comorbidities, such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure. Regular exercise is essential to combat the effects of a sedentary lifestyle, including muscle atrophy and decreased metabolic rate. Accessibility to adapted sport programs provides physical activity opportunities for people with special exercise considerations. Wheelchair basketball helps improve and maintain the following health-related fitness components through regular exercise: cardiorespiratory fitness, flexibility, muscular strength, and muscular endurance. Government-funded adapted sport programs, such as the University of Alabama at Huntsville Ability Sport Network, provides greater access to Paralympic sports. Broader availability of wheelchair-based sports enables players to experience the physical, mental, and social benefits of group exercise. The UAH Ability Sport Network Youth Wheelchair Basketball League works closely with the Kinesiology Department and provides UAH students with experience in adapted physical activity and sport. Although previous research has focused on establishing baseline sport performance measures in higher level players, minimal research has been conducted with youth wheelchair basketball players, perhaps due to time constraints or limited access of sport performance testing. Therefore, a sport performance testing battery was developed to assess initial skill level in youth wheelchair basketball players in the UAH Ability Sport Network. Additional sport performance testing sessions for youth wheelchair basketball players were conducted at the Lakeshore Foundation, a nonprofit training center for athletes with disabilities. Several teams from the southeastern United States were tested. A sport performance testing battery can be used to assess initial skill level of players and can be repeated throughout a season to evaluate skill improvement. This will enable coaches to individualize drills during practice and to designate players to positions for games. It is also important to confirm player classification after the initial functional assessment by observing sport-specific skills used in wheelchair basketball. Baseline values can be used to compare youth players to other junior and elite athletes. This will enable coaches to identify players with elite level talent at the youth level. The purpose of this descriptive study was to determine baseline sport performance values for youth wheelchair basketball players. The testing battery that we used in this study assessed 5 sport-specific skills essential to gameplay in youth wheelchair basketball players: upper body strength and power, speed, shooting accuracy, agility, and flexibility. The National Wheelchair Basketball Association requires team classifiers to designate youth players as either Junior 1 or Junior 2 players based on functional ability, including trunk stability and volume of action, in addition to considering upper limb disability. J1 players have lower functional ability and often depend on passive stabilization of their trunk, which means that they support themselves against their knee or the wheel. J2 players possess active trunk control in both the forward and vertical planes, which means that they have greater flexibility and muscular strength. During games, a maximum of 8 points for a lineup of all male players or 9 points with at least one female player is allowed on the court at one time. Informed consent was obtained from 16 youth wheelchair basketball athletes prior to participation in this study. Of the 16 participants, 13 were diagnosed with congenital disorders. All participants had less than 5 years of experience playing wheelchair basketball. Baseline participant characteristics, including participant descriptors and anthropometric measures, were recorded. All participants performed the field test together regardless of their age or sex, as this reflects the heterogeneity of youth wheelchair basketball teams. The illustrated sport performance testing battery was utilized during this study. These sport-specific field tests included the maximal pass, sprinting with and without a basketball, T-test, spot shot, and the pickup test. Prior to sport performance testing, all tests were demonstrated and each participant was provided an opportunity to practice these skills and develop familiarity with the test. Upper body strength and power of youth wheelchair basketball participants was measured with a maximal pass test. A 5-kilogram medicine ball was chosen for this test after consulting the National Paralympic coaching staff. A taped line was used as the participant pass line, which was placed close to a wall to prevent wheelchairs from rolling backwards during the pass. The participants were instructed to chest pass a 5-kilogram medicine ball as far as possible. A tester marked the spot where the ball contacted the floor. The distance between the contact mark and the pass line was measured using a measuring tape and rounded to the nearest centimeter. Each participant performed 3 trials of the test with at least 2 minutes of rest between trials. Participant speed and ball handling proficiency were assessed using a 10-meter sprint test and a 10-meter sprint test while dribbling the junior basketball. For all tests that involved measuring completion time, Broward TCI timing gate system was used to measure time of completion for each trial. The timers started when the participants' front wheels passed through the starting gate and stopped when the front wheels crossed the second gate located 10 meters away. Each participant performed 3 trials of both sprint conditions, including 3 recorded sprint times without a basketball and 3 while dribbling the basketball. For the condition of sprinting with the basketball, participants were required to follow International Wheelchair Basketball Foundation rules and bounce the ball once per 2 pushes during each attempt. If the participant did not adhere to the dribbling rules, the trial had to be repeated. Participants were given a 2-minute rest period between each sprint trial and a 5-minute rest between the 2 sprint conditions. For each testing condition, only the fastest time of the 3 trials was used for data analysis. Speed and agility of youth wheelchair basketball participants were evaluated using the T-test. Participants could only travel in a forward direction between cones. A single set of timing gates positioned at the start line at cone A assessed the time of completion for each trial. The timer started when the participant's front wheels passed through the starting gate and stopped when the front wheels crossed back through the gate. The tester instructed the participants to sprint from cone A to cone B. Next, they were instructed to sprint from cone C and back across to cone D. The participants then returned back to B and then sprint to the finish at cone A. Each participant completed 3 separate trials with a 2-minute rest period between trials. Shooting accuracy and agility of each player was measured using the spot shot test. Participants attempted 20 shots, 5 shots from each of the 4 positions around the free throw lane, using a junior basketball and shooting at a regulation basket height. Players earned points as follows. 3 points were awarded per each basket made, 1 point was scored when the ball touched the rim, and 0 points were scored when the ball did not touch the rim at all. The final score was the sum of the points from the 20 shots. Flexibility and speed were determined using the pickup test. The player picked up 4 stationary basketballs from the court, 2 of the basketballs with their right hand and the other 2 with their left hand during each attempt. After picking up the ball, it was placed in the lap of the participant and the participant was required to push once before releasing the ball. Once all the balls were picked up, the participant sprinted back to the mid-court start line. The timer began when the participant's front wheels crossed the gate and ended when the front wheels crossed the gate a second time. All participants performed the test 3 times with at least 3 minutes of rest between trials, and the fastest completion time of the 3 trials was reported for data analysis. Descriptive statistics, including mean and standard deviations, were calculated for all sport performance measures. These baseline sport performance values can be used to help assess initial skill level in youth wheelchair basketball athletes. Pearson's correlation coefficient was used to evaluate the relationships between all anthropometric and sport performance measurements. A criterion of p is less than 0.05 was set to establish statistical significance as indicated by the asterisks. In comparison to elite wheelchair basketball athlete sport performance values from previous studies, the youth wheelchair basketball sport performance values were typically less. This may be accounted for due to the age difference between youth players and the elite adult players, as well as the maturational stage that the adult player is at in comparison to youth. And a sex difference is also seen, as some of the studies only looked at elite male players, whereas our study incorporated females and males due to the heterogeneity of most wheelchair basketball teams, as well as developmental differences given the variety of conditions. Several correlations between anthropometric and sport performance measures were observed during this study. Body weight exhibited large correlations with both maximal pass distance and spot shot score, perhaps due to greater muscle mass and increased upper body strength of the participants. Players with larger wingspans often had quicker completion times for test of speed, including sprinting with and without a basketball, the T-test, and a pickup test. This indicates that participants with larger wingspans were able to accelerate their wheelchairs faster by applying more force during the push. A very large positive relationship also existed between the spot shot accuracy and wingspan. This is because that players were within closer proximity to the rim due to their greater reach height. Very large positive correlations were observed between the T-test and the following test of speed: sprinting with a basketball, sprinting without a basketball, and pickup completion times. These results confirm the relationship between speed and agility. It is important for wheelchair basketball athletes to be able to maneuver quickly about the court during gameplay. A battery of sport performance tests can be utilized by coaches to evaluate components of health-related fitness, quantify skill improvement throughout a season, identify elite-level talent in youth players, and compare performance values between junior and higher-level athletes. Further research on sport performance measures in youth wheelchair basketball players is necessary to evaluate fitness level and assess skill improvement in these athletes. Future research can be focused on collecting baseline values from other areas of the United States to establish normative ranges for youth wheelchair basketball players. This could be useful for coaches to provide comparative values, especially if they are using a sport performance testing battery such as the one described in this paper. A longitudinal study to assess skill improvement either over a season or several years could also be used. There are multiple factors that could explain skill improvement, such as players gaining more experience playing wheelchair basketball, as well as improving wheelchair maneuverability both on and off the court. Additionally, a modified aerobic fitness test such as an intermittent shuttle run could be incorporated into the sport performance testing battery in order to assess cardiorespiratory fitness, as wheelchair basketball incorporates both aerobic and anaerobic systems. This research has been accepted for publication by Palestra, a peer-reviewed journal that specializes in sport, physical education, and recreational pursuits for individuals with disabilities. Thank you to all of these individuals and groups that supported and coordinated undergraduate research through the Research and Creative Experiences for Undergraduates this summer. I would also like to thank Dr. Connors for advising me throughout this project, as well as the other authors of the manuscript who contributed significantly to this research project. Thank you for listening to my research presentation on sport performance measures in youth wheelchair basketball players.